Cortisol is making you fat, puffy and tired. At least that's what social media wants you to think. It's been all over TikTok. It is the wellness guru's go-to at the moment to sell you supplements. So you've probably seen countless influencers telling you that cortisol is the source of pretty much all of your problems. Face puffiness, bloated bellies, breakouts, dull skin, under eye bags. Cortisol is to blame for all of it. And these days it seems like almost everything is being diagnosed as a symptom of excess cortisol by unqualified influencers who claim it can be fixed with a simple supplement that they just so happen to sell and is for some reason available on TikTok Shop. To be honest though, none of this started on social media. Fear-mongering around cortisol has been a thing now for decades. Years before cortisol face was a trend, we had products like CortiSlim, which was a weight loss supplement built around the same idea that cortisol is making you fat. So today I want to talk about how we got from dodgy weight loss pills to a wellness industry that's obsessed with cortisol, what the real truth is behind the fear-mongering and misinformation, and why these claims won't go away despite multiple lawsuits and years of doctors debunking them over and over again. If you turned on daytime TV back in the early days of the 2000s, you'd find yourself in a world of miracle supplements, dramatic before and after photos that were usually quite comical for some reason, and so-called wellness experts claiming to know the hidden reason behind pretty much any illness or alignment that you can think of. This was the height of the infomercial era, when health advice was spread by TV hosts rather than actual medical professionals. Audiences were more than happy to buy into whatever misinformation was being spouted, especially if it meant they didn't have to take any responsibility for their problems, and could instead be given an easy solution that required no effort. And weight loss was of course no exception. There were so many miracle cures and diet plans going on around that time, but one of the most spread myths at the time was the idea that cortisol was the reason you were fat, and that instead of having to exercise more and eat less if you wanted to lose weight, you could just take a pill that lowered your cortisol levels and you'd automatically lose weight fast. Cortisol had been known of for decades by that point, but not by the general population. It was just starting to enter the mainstream consciousness in the early 2000s, with people becoming more aware that it existed, and it quickly became widely known as the body's stress hormone. Now, to many, something being called a stress hormone didn't sound good, and this is where a lot of the negativity around cortisol has come from. It also didn't help that a man named Dr. Sean Talbot published a book in 2002 called The Cortisol Connection: Why Stress Makes You Fat and Ruins Your Health. Aside from further linking cortisol to fat retention, a lot of people noticed that the book seemed to heavily push the idea of using supplements to manage cortisol levels, and for many readers the whole book just felt like one big supplement advert. And to be fair, they were probably right. Just 1 year later, in August of 2003, a dietary supplement brand called CortiSlim launched. It probably won't surprise you to hear that Dr. Talbot was the main formulator for CortiSlim and that he was heavily involved in their marketing. The brand was marketed as a cortisol control weight loss formula, and they claimed that used ingredients like magnolia bark extract, green tea extract, and bitter orange pill to control cortisol levels within a healthy range and to specifically target the reduction of belly fat. You may or may not recognize those ingredients. I'm sure we'll talk about them in a minute. CortiSlim quickly became one of the most famous and successful diet supplements of the 2000s. The ads played everywhere on TV and radio for several years, saying things like drop 15 to 50 pounds quickly and keep it off for life with CortiSlim. And no offense to casual dieters, but if you only want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, then CortiSlim is not for you. Those are just a couple of the many questionable claims that the brand made in their ads. And it didn't take long before the outlandish things they were saying drew the attention of the FTC. We'll get onto that and the resulting lawsuit a bit later in the video. But first, you might be wondering what cortisol actually does, seeing as everything we hear about it seems to be overblown and misleading. First of all, cortisol isn't bad for you. In fact, in an article for Time magazine, Dr. Tobias Carling, who is widely regarded as one of the leading adrenal surgeons said that cortisol is indispensable for life. Without cortisol, we would die. The problem with cortisol is that we only ever hear the negatives. We've been made to believe it's an inherently bad hormone, that it's caused by stress, that it makes your face puffy and round, and it's making you hold more belly fat, that it's making you fatigued and ruining your sleep. It's only ever talked about in that very, very negative way. To be fair, there is a kernel of truth in all of this. It is a hormone. It is related to stress. It can inadvertently make you gain weight. It can, in some circumstances, do a lot of the negative things that people claim it does. But it's also nowhere near as simple as people online want you to believe. And the truth of what it actually does to your body has been stretched by the misinformed and becomes something completely different. Cortisol is produced by your adrenal glands. It helps regulate blood pressure, blood sugar, and your immune response, as well as influencing your metabolism and regulating when you're asleep and when you're awake. It is also released in response to stress, helping your body release energy and keeping you alert. But the majority of the time, when it's just being released in normal amounts, it's not causing all the issues people claim it does. So it generally peaks in the morning, helping you to wake up and feel alert, then it gradually declines throughout the day, so that when it's time to go to sleep, it doesn't keep you awake. You'll probably have short spikes of cortisol throughout the day as a temporary response to stress, but that only usually lasts an hour or two at the most before it returns to normal levels. Things become a little bit more complicated when stress becomes an ongoing issue. Chronic stress can cause all sorts of problems, including affecting your sleep quality, food cravings, inflammation, and overall health. Anyone who's been through a particularly stressful period of life knows that stress can change how much you eat, how well you sleep, and how much energy you have in general. But this doesn't mean cortisol is the problem. The underlying stress is the real issue. Nobody is saying that high levels of cortisol for a long time isn't a concern. For example, Cushing's syndrome is a rare disorder that involves having excess cortisol for a long period of time. It can cause things like fragile skin that bruises easily, muscle wasting, a fatty lump between your shoulders, a rounded face, and so many other issues. It's caused by overusing corticosteroids, I believe it's pronounced, or by a tumor on your pituitary or adrenal glands. Like I said, it's a rare condition, but prolonged stress can also cause what's called pseudo-Cushing syndrome. It can be caused by things like severe anxiety, depression, and alcoholism, and symptoms are often the same as you'd see in true Cushing syndrome. But just because Cushing syndrome and pseudo-Cushing syndrome exist doesn't mean you could go around blaming every bit of weight gain or puffiness on cortisol. If your face is a bit puffy, then it's far more likely to be caused by allergies, general fatigue, or fluid retention from eating too much salt or drinking alcohol. And if you're gaining weight, it's more likely due to your diet and level of exercise and lifestyle. If you have Cushing syndrome, then it's a different story, but most people don't have it and are not going to have it. There are a lot of reasons why you might feel hungrier, craving fatty or sugary foods, why you're not sleeping well, why you're retaining water and looking puffy, why you're inflamed, but everyone online wants you to think you need to lower your cortisol levels to fix these issues. Like this is the only possible cause. What they never mention is that cortisol is essential and lowering it too much comes with a serious risk. Having low cortisol is not a good thing. It can even be life-threatening. People who suffer from Addison's disease know this way too well. It happens when your adrenal glands can't produce enough cortisol and aldosterone, I think it's pronounced. I'm not a doctor, but symptoms include things like extreme chronic fatigue, muscle weakness, dangerous drops in blood pressure and blood sugar levels, as well as weight loss at a dangerous rate, and a long list of other issues. Balanced cortisol levels is what you actually want, but that's generally not the message you get from influencers or from brands like CortiSlim. I'll be honest, when I first started hearing about this, I was like, do you not want cortisol levels? Do they need to be low? Like what's going on here? They mostly make it sound like cortisol is the worst thing ever and that you need to lower it using whatever pseudo-scientific pills or protocols that they're selling. There's no nuance at all, as is usually the case. No recommending you get diagnosed by an actual doctor, no talk of the benefits cortisol has, and this one-sided predatory marketing around cortisol has got quite a few people in trouble with the authorities. As I hinted earlier, CortiSlim themselves were on the wrong side of one of the most prominent lawsuits as a result of their questionable take on cortisol. In September 2004, just over a year after CortiSlim first launched, the US Federal Trade Commission filed a lawsuit against the marketers and owners of the brand, alleging that many of the product's advertising claims were deceptive, unsurprisingly. Their main issue was CortiSlim's promises that the supplement was clinically proven to help users lose weight by controlling cortisol and reducing stress-related fat. According to the FTC, those claims had led consumers to believe that there was really solid scientific evidence supporting the promises CortiSlim made when there was no such evidence. Some of the specific claims the FTC called out were CortiSlim causes weight loss of 10 to 50 pounds or more for virtually all users.
Drop 15 to 50 pounds with CortiSlim.
That it causes users to lose as much as 4 to 10 pounds per week. That it causes users to lose weight specifically from the abdomen, stomach, and thighs. That it causes long-term or permanent weight loss. And that the efficacy of CortiSlim and all of its ingredients is demonstrated by over 15 years of scientific research. I mean, you can just hear that's all bullshit as I read it off. The FTC said that all these claims were false and were not sustained by science or evidence or research. They also had a real issue with the deceptive format CortiSlim used to market their product. CortiSlim mostly used TV and radio ads, particularly 30-minute long infomercials, which aired on network and cable TV. Now, those infomercials were weird. They pretended to be a talk show where actors played talk show hosts and would interview Dr. Talbot as their guest about the science behind CortiSlim and the benefits it could give you. They branded it as a program called Breakthroughs, so it didn't feel like an ad, and they even faked people calling in to ask questions about CortiSlim or to tell fake personal anecdotes about their positive experience using the product. Complete fake advertising. During the show, they make claims like saying that no amount of exercise or dieting is going to get rid of fat around your midsection, that you have to control cortisol with CortiSlim to do it, that CortiSlim teaches your body to use cortisol appropriately, and multiple times one of the hosts, Greg something, claims to have lost 30 pounds in just 1 month using CortiSlim. That would be dangerous, no? I don't feel like that's anything to brag about. At no point do they mention that Dr. Talbot and Greg, I want to say Cinnamon, but that's definitely not how you pronounce it.
Dr. Greg Cinnamon, and no offense to casual dieters, but if you only want to lose 5 to 10 pounds, then CortiSlim is not for you.
At no point do they say that they're working with each other as partners to create, market, and sell CortiSlim. I couldn't find the long-form infomercials online anymore, but here's one of their shorter ads to give you the general idea.
Holiday overindulgence can't be changed, but you can reshape your future. A healthy change to the CortiSlim lifestyle of diet, exercise, and CortiSlim can reshape your future, and that's the resolution solution. Go ahead, get your hopes up, get excited, and get into the CortiSlim lifestyle.
Now, the lawsuit revealed that Cinnamon, I think it's Cinnamon, who we just saw in that ad, despite presenting himself as Dr. Greg Cinnamon in CortiSlim's marketing, wasn't actually a real medical doctor. In fact, he'd also been fined by 2 different state boards for pretending to be a psychologist. And it actually came out that prior to this, you're not going to believe this, he actually ran an over-the-phone dream interpretation service, which honestly I would love. A complete scam, but I would love that. It also came out during the lawsuit that the 2 main owners of the brand, brothers Thomas and Stephen Cheng, had previously served time in prison for selling bootlegged CDs. They were apparently the largest distributors of bootleg CDs in the US at the time, and they'd apparently also run another business selling coral calcium supplements which claimed to cure cancer. They closed that business down when they saw other similar products being targeted by the FTC, but this lawsuit also accused the brand of similar unlawful marketing practices for another product called CortiStress, which claimed to cure cancer and Alzheimer's disease. It wasn't a good look for CortiSlim, with people realizing that maybe the people running the company and the claims being made weren't the most trustworthy. The lawsuit ended with the brand's reputation heavily tainted, as well as 4 defendants and the companies in their names having to give up $19 million between them to settle the lawsuit. They were also banned from ever making claims about the benefits or efficacy of any dietary supplement, food, drug, cosmetic, or device that they or any business they are involved in without clear and substantiated evidence that the claims are truthful. So essentially, they can't sell shit. This is something Something that some of those involved seem to have trouble sticking to, however, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Today, CortiSlim seems to have been largely forgotten about. They had to massively tone down their claims about the product after the lawsuit, and since then, interest seems to have dropped. Its website appears to have closed down around 2019, though by that point, the brand had already mostly faded out of public awareness after being hugely recognizable for a few short years. But despite everything crashing and burning for CortiSlim and those behind the pills, a lot of people are still willing to risk doing the same. In fact, CortiSlim seems to have become the go-to formula for a lot of health and wellness brands these days. Pick an issue that people are worried about, ignore the complexities, and pretend it's really, really simple, give people a vaguely accurate sounding reason for their problem, then offer them a solution that sounds scientific, even if it isn't, in the form of a pill. Now, modern wellness has taken that formula and run with it, sprinted with it. We've seen wellness influencers and brands doing the same thing CortiSlim did for everything from beef tallow curing acne and parasites allegedly causing your sugar cravings, to drinking bovine colostrum for your gut health and mixing borax in your water to reduce inflammation and toxins in your body. Definitely don't do that last one. By the way, borax is very dangerous and is classified as a reproductive toxin. And alongside all of that, even though exaggerated claims around cortisol have been getting called out for decades now, dramatizing cortisol still remains one of the wellness industry's favorite things to do, just a fun hobby. You might have thought that the craze around cortisol fear-mongering would have passed by now, but over 20 years after CortiSlim's major lawsuit, there are more brands than ever pushing products that claim to increase cortisol, decrease cortisol, or at least control it in some way. They're just doing it a little bit differently now. Instead of infomercials and fake talk shows, we now have short form videos on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube made by creators who have even fewer medical credentials than the questionable doctors and TV actors playing the TV hosts we used to see. Now we see TikTokers constantly talking about cortisol face, cortisol belly, moon face, adrenal fatigue, and so on and so forth, while also promoting things like cortisol detox drinks, adrenal cocktails, and a wide range of hormone balancing supplements. Cortisol again suddenly seems to be blamed for all sorts of issues, normal experiences everyone has like tiredness, bloating, weight gain, weight loss, aging skin, bags under your eyes, who knows what else. All of it is now apparently evidence of a hormonal imbalance that you need to fix. TikTok is full of videos with people telling you cortisol is making you fat or making your face puffy and round or giving you a double chin. They show you a picture of their puffy face and they say that they've had a stressful day or a stressful week and diagnose themselves and you with moon face or cortisol face. But I can do that. Look, oh, what a stressful day I've had. Oh, I've just had a cortisol pill. That kind of thing. And just like that in these videos, a lot of these people have just lost a bit of weight, or they're just less puffy, or are wearing makeup, or just using lighting, angles, and filters to make themselves look different. These have nothing to do with cortisol. But despite that, creators of these kinds of videos suggest all sorts of things to fix your cortisol, somehow like cortisol cocktails, cutting out caffeine, doing cold plunges, drinking special adaptogene teas, adaptogenic teas, and of course, taking an expensive supplement that's on TikTok Shop. The trouble is, all of these things are based on very limited, inconsistent, and unsubstantiated scientific evidence. It's possible that they might help reduce stress for some people, but claiming that they can make dramatic changes to your appearance or body shape in a short space of time is just a lie. There's definitely no scientific evidence that you can target fat loss in specific areas like your face or stomach, especially not from cutting out caffeine or taking a supplement that claims to lower your cortisol. It's not going to target areas like that. And if you actually look in the comments section when these creators get asked what they did, if they aren't pushing a supplement or some kind of product, they generally say that they focused on eating healthier, doing more exercise, and sleeping better. I mean, yeah, if you do all those things, you probably shouldn't be shocked that you look different, you know? It doesn't mean you had cortisol face or cortisol belly though, you just lost some weight. It is those boring things, eating well, moving more, that is going to help you with anything like that. Now, if you ask an actual doctor instead of a TikToker, they'll tell you that the facial rounding referred to as moon face, while a real phenomenon, is generally only seen with true Cushing syndrome, and the changes happen over several months. It's not just a day-to-day thing. Just having a few stressful days in a row or having a bit of puffiness in your face doesn't mean you have a moon face. They'll also tell you that adrenal fatigue doesn't exist, despite wellness influencers constantly trying to tell you chronic stress is wearing out your adrenal glands and giving you adrenal fatigue. And the truth is that there is no scientific evidence that that is true. If your adrenal glands weren't producing cortisol, then like I said earlier, you have Addison's disease, which does exist but is very rare. If you actually think you might have Cushing's syndrome or Addison's disease, then go and see a doctor. Otherwise, stop blaming your problems on something some TikTokers said you might have because they misunderstood a real medical condition that some people actually suffer with. And don't think that just doing your own at-home cortisol test is enough. This is another problem the fear-mongering around cortisol has caused. Everyone is worried about having cortisol face now, that loads of people are doing their own cortisol tests at home without understanding how to properly measure it, completely misunderstanding what their test results mean, deciding their cortisol is either too high or too low, even though they don't know how to work that out in the first place, then buy an unregulated supplement online and suffer from a whole host of symptoms because they're messing with a hormone that is incredibly important and honestly can do its own job. Lowering or increasing your cortisol levels without knowing what you're doing can cause things like weight gain, acne, irregular periods, stretch marks, the growth of thick, dark hair on your face and body, mood changes, high blood pressure. The list goes on. This isn't something to mess about with just because you saw a TikTok video. In an article written by the Association of Healthcare Journalists, one endocrinologist, which is someone who specializes in hormones and hormonal glands, told a story about a woman who came to her after using a supplement she bought online because she thought an at-home cortisol test said her cortisol was too low. The supplement claimed to increase cortisol, and the marketing made her believe that taking it would relieve fatigue and improve her mood. Instead, she developed several symptoms I mentioned a moment ago, and the endocrinologist found that her cortisol was 5 times the upper limit of what's considered normal. This also led to several other hormone levels being too high or too low, as well as causing her to have a high blood sugar level, a low blood platelet count, and anemia. It apparently took almost 2 years for her body to go back to normal. Stories like that should prove to you that the modern wellness industry isn't worried about the facts if they don't fit their narrative, and they aren't worried about you being the one who gets hurt. As long as they get to pretend they've discovered some amazing magic hidden secret about health and wellness that for some reason doctors didn't know about. The wellness influencers talking about cortisol as if it's some kind of toxin floating about your body, making you sick and fat, either don't know what they're talking about or they're deliberately misleading you for their own benefit. What makes it even worse is that these cortisol face and cortisol belly trends, aside from possibly harming the health of some people, have really just helped reinforce those toxic beauty standards. People who watch these videos and believe them are being trained into thinking that their face or their body doesn't look a certain way. If it doesn't look a certain way, then cortisol is to blame and it needs to be fixed. Genuine medical issues are being stretched beyond their original context and then applied to completely normal features. A naturally round face has become a sign of hormonal imbalance. Morning puffiness after waking up has become evidence of cortisol problems. Tired eyes after a poor night's sleep, normal weight fluctuations, and even ordinary aging have all been reframed as symptoms of an invisible hormone issue. The result is that people start examining their faces, their bodies in minute detail, looking for signs that their cortisol is too high or too low. Every selfie you take, every time you look in the mirror, every time you record yourself is an opportunity to diagnose themselves. Not fitting into a specific ideal isn't just an aesthetic thing anymore, it's a sign that there's also something wrong with you. So it's no surprise that most of these kind of videos are made by and watched by women. Of course, women have always had the worst of it when it comes to unrealistic beauty standards. This is just another way people have found to reinforce those standards. It's another thing to be insecure about. The videos may frame it as healing of some sorts, but the outcome is the same. Instead of directly being told to burn fat or shed 50 pounds like brands like CortiSlim used to do, now you're being told to heal your hormones or lower cortisol. But the real message is still the same. It's that you should lose weight and look exactly how they say you should. If you don't, there must be something wrong with you. Sadly, a lot of people seem to be accepting this new way of thinking about the same old issues gurus. The wellness industry has exploded over the last 20 years. It's worth trillions of dollars now and is even bigger than ever. But that doesn't mean it's any more moral or trustworthy than it used to be. Nothing worth that much is. There are plenty of people who are willing to lie to you and mislead you if it benefits them, even when it comes to your health. Some of them have been doing it for decades. Remember Dr. Talbot from the CortiSlim lawsuit? Well, he was actually sued by the FTC again in June of 2026 because they found he'd allegedly been making false, deceptive, or unsubstantiated health claims about more products he was involved in marketing. This time, ones that are marketed for children as well as adults, and supposedly to cure or treat things like depression, anxiety, and ADHD. So not only have the tactics and the beauty standards the wellness industry relies on not changed in the last 2 decades, but neither have some of the people involved in it. At least back then we used to call it what it was: diet culture, body shaming, and pseudoscience. Now we just call it wellness. But what do you think though? Has TikTok got you worried about cortisol? Have you ever tried any of these cortisol lowering cocktails, hacks, or protocols or supplements? Or were you even one of the many people who tried CortiSlim back in the 2000s? Let me know in the comments and hopefully I'll see you next time.